This is a collaborative artwork. It's dated 1799, and it began with a set of 16 poems written by this famous scholar, calligrapher, painter named Cao Zhenxiu. There was this whole tradition of collecting biographies of famous women from Chinese history and legend who could serve as both good and bad examples. This goes all the way back, by her time, like 1800 years. The kind of biographies that get officially celebrated focus on the chastity of widows, the loyalty of wives to their husbands. What made me so excited about this album is that it represents this interesting development in changing attitudes towards what constitutes feminine virtue. Cao Zhenxiu's selections of famous women that she found interesting are a little surprising. They're very pointedly accomplished as scholars, as artists, as calligraphers, as warriors. Cao Zhenxiu's poems are on the left, written in her calligraphy with her seals. On the right, we have the images by this young virtuoso painter in his mid-20s named Gai Qi. But Gai Qi is not making straightforward illustrations of the poems. He does all these interesting things with brush and ink. These images are almost like scenes seen under moonlight, where at first it's so low contrast that you can't even really see what's happening. But if you take the time to let your eyes adjust, you realize that within that limited spectrum is infinite richness and infinite complexity. You wouldn't necessarily think that an artist like Gai Qi would take this approach in his mid-20s. You would think they would want to go big, flashy. The boldness here is in its quietude, in its subtlety, in its restraint. The leaf that really drew me to this album was this one, which depicts Hong Fu-Yu. She was a courtesan at the Sui dynasty court in the late 6th century. She escaped from the court. She becomes this kind of like rebel bandit figure. We don't see her face, we see her in 3/4 rear profile, and she has this long sweep of hair. And it looks like she's looking into a big rectangular mirror. And when you step back and you see the whole composition, you realize that what's being depicted here is not a mirror, but it's a doorway through which we see the tail of the horse that's outside. So Gai Qi is sort of playing a trick on the viewer here. This is the early work of a genius. And then we turn the page again and we get another semi-legendary, semi-historical figure. Madame Wei gave rise to this whole tradition that we think of as the classical tradition of calligraphy. And yet, this is the only image I've ever seen of Madame Wei. She also wrote this really important text on calligraphy, and this text has been read by pretty much every young calligrapher in China since the 6th century. Here, Cao Zhenxiu puts her right back into the story of Chinese history. Traditionally, scholarship despaired of the possibility of finding the voices of women. New scholarship is saying that no, we just weren't looking hard enough. We weren't looking in the right places. Here we have a visual, physical trace of a woman performing an act of self-representation that's really powerful from the late imperial period. And we have this opportunity to put it on view in the galleries and to have a dialogue, and that's really exciting.